Okay, let's dive straight into this. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating concept. It's from some excerpts of a forthcoming book by Terence J Hughes. And the main idea is something called the invisible injury. We're looking at it through, well, movement preparation and recovery ideas, and also this thing described as the modern joint crisis.
Yeah, it's quite a striking term, the invisible injury.
It is. And the source kind of kicks off with this core question aimed right at you, the listener. When was the last time you fully articulated a joint, like really took it through every bit of motion it's designed for? Your shoulder, hip, even your knee. Just think about that.
It's a powerful question because, well, most of us probably struggle to remember, right? If ever. So our mission here is to figure out why this might be a hidden issue, this invisible injury thing. What's the science say? And what specific steps, what protocols does the source suggest to maybe get that back?
And importantly, this isn't just framed as, something for pro athletes trying to shave milliseconds off their time. The source makes it clear this is relevant for pretty much anyone with a body. Maybe even more relevant if your daily life doesn't involve a huge variety of movement.
Exactly. The source really points to this idea of pattern poverty in motion as the root cause. It's a simple idea, but kind of profound. Most people, yeah, even trained athletes, probably haven't explored the full range of things like internal or external rotation or movement across different planes, maybe since they were kids, just messing around.
Pattern poverty, I like that phrase, paints a picture. So how does this poverty actually show up in our bodies?
Well, the source highlights two main things. First, just our modern sedentary lifestyle, all the sitting we do. That directly leads to what's called articular stiffness inside the joint capsule. Think tight hips, or maybe losing that little screw-home rotation the knee does when it fully straightens. Even ankles lose range.
Ah, that little locking mechanism in the knee. I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's crucial for stability. And the second big driver, sports specialization. So you get really good at one thing, but the flip side is often pattern overload. Like a soccer player whose knees are great forwards and backwards, sagittal plane, but maybe lack control side to side or in rotation. Or a pitcher with a powerful shoulder who might lose internal rotation over time. That can lead to issues later.
So it's like we forget how to use the full menu of movement our joints offer, even if we do some stretching or a basic warm-up. The source really reframes that whole warm-up idea, doesn't it? Suggesting it should be more like rearticulation, re-education for the nerves and joints.
Exactly. You're essentially reteaching your brain and body how to access and control what's already there or what should be there.
Okay, so if the old warm-ups aren't cutting it, what does work? What's the science behind this rearticulation idea?
Well, the sources point to slow, controlled movements, specifically things called controlled articular rotations, or CARs for short. These seem to have several benefits. Moving slowly through your full available range, that encourages synovial fluid production.
The joint's natural lubricant.
Pretty much, yeah. Like WD-40 for your joints helps nourish the cartilage, too. And these slow movements, they also wake up your joint mechanoreceptors.
Yeah.
Tiny sensors inside the joint telling your brain exactly where it is and how it's moving.
Ah, so it improves that sense of body awareness, proprioception.
Precisely. Your brain gets a much clearer map. And there's even research suggesting these slow, controlled movements can kind of calm down the nervous system, the fight or flight response, which might actually help you access a little more range, more control.
Okay, that science makes sense. Which leads us to the practical side, this movement sequence preparation protocol they proposed.
Yes, and it's definitely not your typical 5 minutes on the treadmill kind of warm-up. The goal is very functional. It's about priming the nervous system, getting that synovial fluid flowing, waking up the kinetic chains, how muscles and joints work together, but in a way that's really specific to what you're about to do, not just generic movement.
Okay, break it down for us. Phase 1, synovial lubrication and cross-lateral integration. Takes about, 3 to 5 minutes?
Yeah, roughly. This phase uses things like light eccentrics in motion. An example given is like walking knee drifts. So as you walk, you allow a very slight, controlled inward or outward drift at the knee. It's very light, maybe 20–30% effort. The idea is this gentle eccentric load prepares the joint capsule without tiring you out.
Okay, gentle prep and cross-lateral pulsing. What's that?
Imagine, say, doing a lateral step reaching across your body, but instead of just holding a stretch, you add a small rhythmic pulse of external rotation in the hip of your standing leg. The focus is slow, rhythmic, sensing and creating a little tension and release through the fascia, that connective tissue web.
So it's more about feeling the connection and control, less about just stretching passively.
Yeah, exactly. You're asking the tissues to wake up and prepare for work. Then you move into phase 2, the movement sequences. These are the sport-specific roadmaps, about 5 to 8 minutes here.
Right. This is where it gets really tailored to the activity.
Yeah. They call it slow, no-force choreography. You're basically rehearsing key movements from your sport, but super slow, very deliberate, no real force or speed, like the soccer player example. Moving from a side shuffle into a crossover step, then into a slow single-leg RDL, really feeling the hip control. Or a basketball player doing a slow step back, a controlled pivot, maybe a tiny hop and land, focusing on absorbing it smoothly. Tennis serve motion, same idea, slow and controlled.
It sounds almost like mindful movement practice.
It kind of is. And they also throw in rhythmic disruptions. Maybe you change tempo suddenly within the slow movement. A slow step, then a quick tap, then hold. This challenges that proprioception, that body awareness, getting it ready for the unpredictable timing of real sports.
Okay, interesting. And the last bit, phase 3, high specificity recycling.
Shorter, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Now you take those specific movements and ramp them up a bit, maybe 50–70% intensity. It's about integrating the control you just practiced into something a bit more dynamic. And a key rule here, if your sport involves rotation, start layering that in now. Don't wait.
This whole protocol seems to really emphasize control, doesn't it? Which connects to another point in the source, this idea about getting high muscle recruitment with low loads. That sounds backwards.
It does seem counterintuitive, yeah. Maximal fiber recruitment at minimal loads. We usually think heavyweights, right? To get strong, to hit those powerful muscle fibers.
So how does it work with lighter loads or just body weight?
The explanation involves slow eccentrics, the lowering phase of a movement, taking maybe 4 to 6 seconds to lower, maybe adding pauses, and combining that with isometric holds, just holding a position still. Doing this, apparently, can recruit your high-threshold motor units, your powerful type 2 fibers, even at loads as low as 30–50% of your max.
Wow.
It's the time under tension. If you accumulate enough tension time, say 8 to 10 minutes total across a protocol, even with light loads, you force those powerful fibers to stay involved. The source links this to why sometimes elite athletes fail due to loss of motor control, not just pure fatigue. It suggests this type of work directly addresses that neuromuscular control aspect.
So you're basically training the nervous system's ability to command those strong fibers precisely, without necessarily needing the heavy weight itself. What about adding rotation to this?
Yeah, adding rotational resistance, like using a band during a squat or lunge, is highlighted. It apparently improves co-contraction, how well opposing muscles like quads and hamstrings work together. It also helps tendons adapt to become stiffer, which is good for transferring force efficiently. And crucially, it really fires up those smaller stabilizer muscles around the joint, big for injury prevention.
Okay, so that's preparation covered.
Yeah.
But the source treats recovery differently too, right? Not just flopping on the couch, it's more movement re-education.
Absolutely. The recovery protocols aren't just about passive rest. They're seen as a chance to continue building that movement literacy, reinforcing the good stuff you did in prep.
So what does that look like? There's an articulation phase first?
Yeah, about 4 to 6 minutes. This involves gentle, nonlinear joint circles. Think slow, mindful knee circles, or making figure 8 patterns with your hip. Again, not static stretching, but controlled movement to get that synovial fluid moving. Explore ranges gently. Maybe some pulsed calf raises with a slow lower to help lymphatic drainage, clearing out waste products.
Makes sense. Then movement recycling.
This is cool. 5 to 7 minutes. It's called reverse engineered preparation. You basically do slow, backward versions of your main sport movements. Soccer player, slow reverse lunges, sprinter, maybe some controlled backward walking or slow jogging. The idea is moving in these less familiar pathways might reduce neural fatigue and help balance out all the forward focus movement typical in sports.
Huh. It's like hitting the rewind button to counter some of that pattern overload.
Kind of like that, yeah. And finally, there's a systemic flush, 3 to 5 minutes. This uses rhythmic, low-amplitude movements. Think gentle pendulum leg swings, easy arm circles, maybe some light self-mobilization of joints. The goal is just gentle overall circulation enhancement to help clear out any leftover metabolic byproducts from the activity.
So these aren't just rigid routines. You can use them flexibly.
Totally. The source suggests you could do the whole thing as a standalone preparation session, maybe 20–30 minutes before a big game, or on an active recovery day, or just as a reset if you feel stiff.
Or break it up into smaller chunks.
Exactly. Use them as integrated session components, maybe just phase 1 for 5–10 minutes before regular training, or slot some phase 2 movements between sets in the gym, use recovery bits between training blocks.
And does it change depending on who's doing it? Say, a kid versus a pro athlete?
Yeah, there are different guidelines. For younger athletes, maybe 4 or 6 minutes, moderate intensity. The focus is more on building good habits early, improving tendon health, getting left and right sides working together smoothly, just building that movement literacy foundation. For elite athletes, it's often longer, maybe 8–10 minutes, and more comprehensive. It can actually become diagnostic, exposing subtle compensations or weaknesses that only show up under controlled conditions. It's also key for addressing specific restrictions they've built up over years and just maintaining joint health under really high loads.
This sounds like it requires a different mindset from coaches, too. What are the key takeaways for them?
Well, a big one is treating these sequences like shadow boxing for your sport. You're deliberately layering complexity, rhythm, control, not just going through motions. No mindless reps, no static holds just for the sake of it. Every single movement should have a clear purpose related to prepping the nervous system and joints. And this is crucial. If an athlete fails during one of these slow, controlled movements, it's not seen as weakness. It's seen as a loss of neuromuscular control in that specific pattern or range. That makes the whole thing a valuable assessment tool. And again, they stress that low-load, high-control benefit, getting quality muscle activation without necessarily needing heavy, potentially joint-stressing weights.
Which loops us right back to that very first question, the heart of this invisible injury idea. When was the last time you fully articulated a joint? This source actually encourages people to try it as a self-assessment.
Yes. They literally challenge you, the listener, to feel some of these often neglected movements, like knee tibial rotation. Sit down, lift your foot, and just gently try to rotate your lower leg bone in and out relative to your thigh. The quote they use is pretty pointed. Did you even know your knee could do this? Most find they have very little active control there.
Or the hip femoral circles.
Right. Standing, maybe holding on lightly, and making tiny controlled circles or figure eights with your thigh bone inside the hip socket. Not swinging the whole leg, but isolating that rotation. The source says, your hip isn't just a hinge, it's a ball and socket, meant for complex motion.
And the ankle one, inversion.
Yeah, tilting the sole of your foot inward and outward, really focusing on controlling it just at the ankle without your whole leg rolling. And the reminder, most sprains happen because you never train this specific range with control.
Wow. Yeah, just thinking about doing those, you immediately get a sense of what pattern poverty feels like, don't you? How restricted some of those movements might be.
Absolutely. And that feeling is the whole point behind Beyond Warm-Up, movement literacy. This isn't just about getting warm or flexible in a general sense. It's fundamental re-education. If you haven't consciously controlled these joint movements since childhood, the source argues you might be operating with, well, stiff, rusty hinges instead of the fluid, responsive joints you could have.
It really positions this as a foundational piece that's maybe missing for a lot of people in how they think about preparing their bodies.
Exactly. It's framed as the missing link between mobility and performance, implying that peak performance and resilience aren't just about strength or flexibility alone, but about the conscious control you have over your available range of motion.
So wrapping up this deep dive on the invisible injury, based on Terence J Hughes' upcoming work, the core idea seems to be that many of us might be carrying this hidden limitation, a loss of fundamental joint articulation that had likely started way back. And these protocols, they aren't just new warm-ups. They're presented as a systematic way to re-educate your body, your nervous system, your joints, to reclaim those lost abilities.
It's really about becoming a more aware, more skillful mover, starting right down at the level of the individual joints.
Which brings us back to that simple but profound question. When was the last time you fully articulated a joint? And maybe it leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If it's true that we might have unknowingly lost access to these basic joint movements, what other fundamental ways of moving, what other capabilities might we have let slide without even realizing it? How could just asking yourself that question, when was the last time, for different joints, different movements, maybe change how you approach activity, training, or even just daily life?